Hello, this is Garrett Keane continuing the series of videos on VBA programming in Excel. I'm continuing the videos on arrays. Last video we looked at this subroutine called surnames, which generated an array of 5 surnames. This time we're looking at a small subroutine that will add up 5 marks, which are given here. So a dimension I is an integer. If I just run through it, it's the easiest way. Dimension I is an integer. I dimension the mark, I could call it mark or marks, mark 1 to 5 as an integer, and dimension total as an integer. I we're going to use as the loop variable, mark is the array to store the 5 marks, and total is obviously the variable to store the total that we're looking for. If I come through here, we have our 5 just assignment statements. I just made up these marks. So mark 1 is 56, mark 2 is 23, mark 3 is 34, mark 4 is 78, and mark 5 is 56. So the first thing we do before we go into the loop is to initialize total equal to 0. By default it will be 0, but it's always good practice to do this step. As we go through the loop, the first time through the loop I will have the value 1. So if I just print this out here, I'm just going to clean the immediate window out. Out, and I'll print I, comma, mark I, comma, total. Now if I print it now, this line hasn't been executed yet, so I has the value 1, mark I is the 56, I has the value 1, so it's mark 1 is 56, and the total is 0 because I haven't executed this line yet. What this line will do is it'll take the value of total, which is 0, it'll add on the value of mark I, which is 56, so it's 0 plus 56, and the result of that calculation gets assigned back into the variable called total. Now if I come back down here, I've executed the statement. Now I is equal to 1, mark 1 is 56, and the running total now is 56. So if I come through and execute it again, I now has the value 2. And if I just do that, as the value 2, mark 2 is 23, but our running total is still at 56 because we haven't added the 23 on. When I execute this statement, we should get, if we add these together, is 79. So I press F8, and you can see that's correct. I is 2, mark 2 is 23, and when you add the 2, mark 1 and mark 2 together, you're getting 79. F8, and I execute the third time. So mark I is 3, mark 3 is 34, and I've added that 34 onto the previous running total, which is 79, and that gives me 113. And I'll run through to the end, so that's mark 4. We add on the 78 onto the 113, and mark 5 is 56. We add that on to the 191. And I'll just print it out here. It's not allowing me to do it because I've come out the loop now, but what it will do is it'll put the total out onto a message box, and it says the total is 247. So if you add those 5 up, you'll see that they do add up to 247. Now the next one is very similar, is to average the array. So really I just finished that last one out by just pressing the reset button. And this time it's the exact same code. The only extra addition is an extra variable called averages double, and we work out the total in the same way. And the only addition I've added in is average is equal to total divided by 5, a message box the average is, and I add on average there. So if I run this one, it's going to run in a similar way to the last one, where it loops around 5 times, adding each new mark onto the running total. Now I'll just print that out here. If I just clean out the immediate window, and all I'll do is I'll print the total, and you can see it's 247 like we got the last time because it's the identical code. And then this is the extra line in here which works out the average, and I'll just print that out. It's 49.4, and it puts that out onto a message box. The average is 49.4. The next one we look at is max array. So what this one will do is it'll run through the array of marks and it will find the maximum value. Now remember, it'll also tell you which index it actually occurs. Now I call it max. I have a variable here for max, which will give me the maximum value at the 5 marks. It'll pick it out. And I also have a variable called max first index. Remember, it's possible that you can have two values, which are two maximum values in the array. So this code will actually find the index of the first one that it finds, even if there is a second one. So if I run through this, F8 in here, F8, and we assign the same 5 marks as before. This time we're going to search through this array and we're going to look for the maximum value. So I initialize this max, which is going to store the maximum of these 5 values, and I initialize it to 0. Then I go in and we set I is equal to 1. So we're going to test the first element of the array. If mark 1 is greater than max, well, max is equal to 0, mark 1 is 56. That means that this test is going to be true, therefore it'll go inside into this code here. And if that test is true, it takes the 56 and assigns it into max. It also says, well, we found that at the first element of the array, so we record that value in max first index. So if I come here, I'll just clean out the immediate window, and I'll print I'll print max and max first index. I'll also print mark I, and I'll print I as well. I'll print them all. Now remember, I is equal to 1, mark I is 56. Max has now been, after this is executed, max now has the value 56, and max first index has the value 1, because that's where I found this maximum value. So I proceed on through the code. I now has the value 2. Now mark 2 is equal to 23. That's not greater than max, so you can see it just skipped. If I bring it back up here, if mark 2 is greater than max, well, mark 2 has the value 23, max has the value 56, therefore this condition would be false, and it just skips down to the end of it. I now has the value 3, mark 3 is, I can print it off there actually, so mark 3 is 33, sorry, I is 3, mark 3 is 34, max is 56, and max first index is still 1. You can see it skips down here again, and after that's been executed, the maximum value is still 56, and the location where that was found is position 1. Now if we come on to the next one, I is equal to 4, you can see we're going to have a value here, 78, which is going to be greater than max. So if I print this out here, I is 4, mark 4 is 78. You can see, now I haven't gone in here yet, but you can see it is going to be greater than 56. Therefore this condition should be true, therefore it should come in here, which it does. It takes mark I here, mark 4, which is 78, and it will assign it into max. And it will also capture the position where it occurred, so it occurred in the fourth element. And you can see that's worked correctly. I is 4, mark I is 78, max is now 78, and it occurred on the 4th index. Then we come to the next one. Mark I is 56, I'll just show that. I is 5, mark 5 is 56. 56 is less than 78, so this condition should be false. It should skip to the end of, which it does. And you can then see that it comes out here and it prints the maximum value of 78 is found at index 4. Okay. Now I'll play around with these figures a bit here. Say I say that's 56, 58, 78, another example. I'm going to do two 78s. So we have two maximum values which are equal. So if I run through this again, F8, we assign the 5 values, we go through the loop. So I've gone through the loop the first time. I'll clean the last run. It's gone through the first time, and we're now on to the second loop. But it's assigned the first value in here, 56, into the it assigned 56 into max, and now we're on the second value where we have 58. Now 58 is greater than 56, so this should be true. It is. So now it will assign the value of 58 into max, and it will say that the maximum value occurred on the second index, second element of the array. So if I now print it out, after 2 iterations, it says the maximum value is 58, which is here, and it occurs on the second index. I then come here and I say if mark I is greater than max, so we're now on, I'll just print it off, we're now on position 3, mark 3 is 78, max is still 58, but it's true, the condition is true, so it's about to swap the 78 into max, and it's going to say that occurred on the third index. So you can see it's worked. 78 is now the max, and it captures max first index is 3. If I then come to the next one, mark 4 is also 78, but look at the test. It says if mark 4 is greater than max, it's equal to max, it's not greater than it, this condition will be false, which it is, and it skips to the end. And also now we're on mark 5. You can see that basically 78 is the maximum value, and the first time it occurred was on index 3. Although there's 2 78s, you're capturing when it first occurred. And now mark 5 is 56, this condition would be false, and it just skips out. So the maximum value of 78 is found at index 3. Now if I was to simply change this to greater than or equal to max, and we run it, what's going to happen here is it will actually capture, if we run through it, okay, that's one time. So after one run, the maximum value is 56 and it occurred at position 1. After 2 runs, the maximum value is 58 and it occurred at position 2, which you expect. After 3 runs, the maximum value is 78 and it occurred at index 3, but now look at this, max 4 is now greater than or equal to. Well, 78 here is equal to the 78 there, this condition is true, therefore we'll assign this 78 into max, so it's still 78, but now we'll assign the index 4. And if we look at it here, it's now captured the last time it found the maximum value. The 5th value is less than that, so it just skips it. So really in that case, technically I should call that max last index, because it's the last point when it was actually found. Okay, and I'd have to change it down here and here if I was to do that. Just to show you the small little subtlety of having a greater than and a greater than equal to in the position there. That switches back the way it was. So first index and greater. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for listening.